Labą dieną, gerbiami.
Hello, dear colleagues, journalists, ministers of foreign affairs, colleagues, heads of the delegations to the Baltic Assembly. I would like to inform you that yesterday and today we held the 40th session of the Baltic Assembly and the Baltic Council of Ministers. We focused on the cooperation of the three Baltic states, what we have achieved in our cooperation. I'm happy that in the area of defense, joint procurements are being coordinated. We will put all our efforts to achieve even bigger progress in coordinating joint public procurements. Secondly, the Baltic states were able to jointly negotiate procurements on protective gear and medical supplies via the EU joint mechanism. Also, there's a plan to renew the Baltic Partnership Agreement on joint medical procurements. There's a wish to include people who manage the fields more broadly. Thirdly, since August 2021, all three countries have become associated members of the CERN. Cooperation of the Baltic states within CERN is very active. There are numerous issues to be addressed in the future, including joint study program for technologies for all Baltic states and internship program for the Baltic students. Fourthly, good cooperation was observed in dealing with COVID-19. We exchanged ideas on how to address the pandemic. So these were the achievements in the areas, and before giving the presidency to Latvia, therefore, I would like to give the floor to my colleague from Latvia, Jānis Vucans.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the 1st January 2022, Latvia is taking over the presidency in the Baltic Assembly. And of course, within the Latvian presidency, we will try to ensure continuity in the work of the Baltic Assembly, because this is a tradition at the Baltic Assembly. So we are an organization of cooperation, and for every cooperation, continuity is important. However, we will also try to bring new points of focus in the cooperation of the Baltic Assembly and consequently the Baltic states. So the most important point might be that although in the last years we have been focusing on defense and security matters, which is very important in the current geopolitical circumstances, then more and more important has become the issue regarding the recovery from the crisis caused by the pandemic and the economic growth of our countries. So this will be one of the main aspects during the Latvian presidency in the Baltic Assembly, and in our agenda we will try to include more and more points regarding the cooperation of our states to improve the economic conditions and productivity of our countries. If I must name the main cooperation areas for the Latvian presidency, it is related to the continuity, to the climate and energy fields, the science and innovation in the Baltic states, reducing the social inequalities, which is a problem in all of our three countries, and of course the fight against organized crime. And we must never forget about this problem. Regional development is one of the main issues as well, here in the Baltic context and also in a wider context. Here I would like to point out that at the beginning of this week, I was in Copenhagen to take part in the annual session of the Nordic Council, where we talked a lot about the cooperation among the 5 Nordic states, about their successes and maybe the weak aspects of their cooperation during the pandemic. So in our mass media, we have not seen that many news about it, but in the Nordic countries, the cross-border cooperation has really been an issue during the pandemic. Country borders have been closed. The movement of employees and labor force has not been that great. So these were the issues that were mentioned as the success story regarding the Baltic states and the Baltic bubble, because we have been able to ensure that the pandemic has not hit the economy that hard. And why am I saying this? By taking reasonable decisions when governments are discussing things with parliaments, we can avoid situations where the restrictions are too excessive, and this directly impacts our cross-border cooperation as well. In the case of Latvia and Estonia, we have the situation of Valka and Valga, one city in 2 countries, basically. And if we put a border in this city, then all economic activities in this city would stop. So our interparliamentary organization is also meant for this purpose, so that we can solve regional issues, and we cannot forget about this at any given moment. So at the end of this session, I will talk more about the plans of Latvia and its presidency in the Baltic Assembly, and here I will probably give floor to my colleague Sven Sester.
Thank you. As I understood, I have a possibility to make my native languages. Thank you.
Colleagues, ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy today to sit at this table and admit that the cooperation we have had for years has again successfully been completed for this year. And the topics that we have had on our table were all important. We have reached an understanding that the Baltic common interests are security, Eastern Partnership, and of course, over the last years, topics of COVID crisis, but also defense policy and cooperation. And with all these topics, we have discussed at the level of committees every year more than once, and in addition to our internal national interests, we also have common interests which are included in the communication that we just signed. I thank my partners that cooperation this year has again been constructive, and we look forward to a good cooperation next year when Latvia will have its presidency. And there are many topics on the table, starting with energy security, but also ending with organized crime and other topics. So I'm sure that it will be a very interesting and work-filled year. So thank you for this cooperation so far, and we will continue next year.
I thank dear colleagues for your positions, and now I would like to give the floor to the chair of the Cooperation Council of the Baltic Council of Ministers, Mr. Gabrielius Landsbergis. Thank you, dear colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President. It is a pleasure to congratulate our Baltic friends and to see them. We see each other with the ministers of Latvia and Estonia nearly every week. This meeting gave us an opportunity to overview this year. to discuss issues raised long ago, our attitudes and approaches towards Eastern policies, evaluation of threats. We understand those threats. We are on the same note on that, both in the EU and NATO. We see the importance of Eastern Partnership countries in the EU and to our security. Therefore, we advocate for Ukraine's, Georgia's and Moldova's approachment to the European Union. We appreciate the reform processes and progress in those areas. We advocate for those countries' objective of integrating into the EU. We also were able to evaluate our cooperation in the face of new threats. I had in mind COVID-19. Lithuania's decision to give vaccines to Latvia, that is facing a worse situation from among our three countries. This is just a symbol of cooperation when neighbors help each other. And good communication, constant contacts help us not only to cooperate in foreign policies, but also to provide help when it is needed. Estonia, for example, though facing a direct migration threat from Belarus, offered its hand to Lithuania. It was the first country to do that. And this is thanks to our wonderful cooperation. We agreed that the crisis that we face today, hybrid, political, and others, are new, but they're not the last. And in addressing those crises that we see today, we have to be prepared for the future crisis that will emerge. Lithuania asks for solidarity in dealing with China's pressure. We invite the revision of our approach towards the Pacific strategies. This is a new topic among the three Baltic states, and we are ready to move forward in this area. Once again, thank you for the constructive discussion. Thank you for coming here to Lithuania, and I give this chairmanship to Edgars in Latvia.
Thank you. First of all, thanks a lot to our Lithuanian colleagues, both at the Parliament and at the Ministers' Council, for this successful work of the Baltic Assembly, for running successfully the work of the Baltic Assembly and the Baltic Council of Ministers. I suppose both the cooperation of the foreign ministers and of the line ministers has been very good. We are also very happy that we have been able to cooperate in the crisis situations bilaterally, and as has recently been mentioned also in the questions of the vaccine exchange and the relevant contract on which the line ministers have agreed. We have also worked a lot at security and defense issues. This year has been marked by the hybrid attack on the borders of Latvia and Lithuania, and we can see that the link between our diplomats is very close, and it also demonstrates once again that the cooperation of the Baltic states is not only political or symbolic, but also very practical. Mr. Vucans has already talked about our forthcoming presidency and the priorities that we are going to implement in security, in connectivity and other issues, I would just like to highlight the fact that we see an essential element at which all the three countries have to work, namely the digital issues, the digital economy, cyber security, cyber defense. And in this area, our three countries can be called leaders both in European level and globally. So we have to continue working at these issues. Another question that was discussed during the session is the transition to the green economy, which is not going to be simple. Political statements will not be enough. We will need a lot of practical work. So we need to make sure that our cooperation fosters our enterprises, our public institutions, in order to jointly find solutions or agree on joint projects in the development of the green economy. I think that all the rest has already been mentioned. And I would really, once again, would like to once again confirm our commitment to continue doing what the Lithuanian presidency has already done in order to give forward our work to our Estonian colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be in Vilnius today at the 27th Baltic Council of Ministers meeting. This year has been a special year in our relations. It's 100 years since we made diplomatic relations, and also 30 years from restoration of our independence. It's a great joy to be here this year and to celebrate the fact that all of us are such strong democratic countries that value human rights and basic freedoms, and that we carry forward Baltic cooperation on the same principles. I thank the Lithuanian presidency and my dear colleague and the president of the Lithuanian president of the Baltic Assembly for working and for hosting us today. Despite the difficult situation around COVID-19, in close cooperation, we have also taken forward all the priorities and fields that need cooperation, like green transition, infrastructure projects, Eastern Partnership, security, and of course, overcoming the corona crisis. I'm very happy that we agreed on a very ambitious communication, which was just signed, and which showed even more clearly which future cooperation we want to carry on. Talking about the Baltic security, NATO and transatlantic relations continue to be vital for us. At the meeting today, I was happy to confirm that the Baltic cooperation in NATO is very efficient, and we will work in the future towards making our deterrence even stronger. It's also important that NATO and EU cooperate. Last year, I was very happy to host the Bucharest 9 countries and to discuss common steps in NATO in preparation for the NATO Ministers of Foreign Affairs meeting in Riga. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania also think it's important to have very confident relations between EU and USA. The presence of the USA is important for our security and for the EU security as a whole. We will take care that the transatlantic relations remain strong, and we are strong for our allies, to the NATO air policing missions, and for the combat groups in Baltic states. stability in our neighboring countries is also important for us, and therefore we have been the leaders in the Eastern Partnership policy, and we contribute towards making sure that the Eastern Partnership countries continue their efforts in the direction of the European Union and come closer to our common shared value space. We support Ukraine in its independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. The meetings today, at the meeting today, we also spoke about the hybrid threats caused by Belarus. It's still regrettable that the Belarus regime is using people that are in a very vulnerable position. This migration pressure at the European Union external border shows that we need specific and quick solutions in order to cope with such situation more efficiently. If we look at future priorities of the Baltic states, I want to talk about our cooperation in developing energy infrastructure and communications, and also the Rail Baltic, which is a very ambitious project, and the synchronization of the European power grids with the continental Europe, and also developing common gas markets. We work towards completing all these large-scale projects. In addition to improving communications, they also improve to strengthen the security and resilience of our region. We also draw attention to environmental topics, and offshore wind farms could be in the future our main energy sources. In the long perspective, this could be a priority to promote wind parks on the Baltic Sea. And in the end, our cooperation as close neighbors and allies is very efficient. And to conclude, I would like to say that this is an excellent format which shows that we can speak in our mother tongues at international events. I have been very happy to listen to presentations in Latvian and Lithuanian today, and I hope this format continues in the Baltic Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you to colleagues, heads of our delegations, as well as the ministers of foreign affairs. Let me just once again express my satisfaction about the ongoing cooperation within the framework of the Baltic Assembly that has lasted for 30 years already. And this year we are marking the 30th anniversary of the Baltic Assembly. We have a number of other beautiful traditions, which is the Baltic Assembly prizes and medals. We are continuing with this cooperation. And now, before the Latvian presidency in 2022, I would like to wish that even though we have shifted to remote cooperation in terms of arranging our meetings, that in the future everything goes even more efficiently, and that remote meetings will not only contribute our cooperation, but rather on the contrary, enrich them. Do you have any questions now?
I would like to thank the Lithuanian delegation and the Lithuanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I would like to thank them for the fact that in these times that are so hardened by the pandemic, managed to ensure the interparliamentary cooperation work. Basically, all of the joint meetings of the Baltic Assembly committees that had been planned have taken place. The plan for the next year has also been drafted, I would also like to mention the fact that over the last year, Lithuania had double responsibility. Namely, Lithuania finished its presidency in the Baltic Sea Parliamentary Conference and the international parliamentary work there, also in the pandemic hit conditions, was very successfully carried out by Lithuania. So we thank Lithuanians on behalf of the Latvian and Estonian delegations, together with Sven sisters, and we would like to continue this work. I do hope that during the Latvian presidency we will be able, I hope that circumstances will enable us to return to the offline events, because when you can see and feel the shoulder, the elbow feeling of your colleagues, it is completely much more pleasurable format. One can discuss such issues that are really hard to discuss online. And from my experience, I would like to say that the best initiatives are born from the offline events. So I wish everyone, each and every one of us, to switch as soon as possible to the offline format. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone once again. Thank you for your attention.
You want to...